Let's be honest with each other. If you were a child in the United Kingdom, Australia, or Ireland between the years 1950 and 1998, you know the feeling, the weight, the heft, the sheer, undeniable mass of a wagon wheel. It wasn't a delicate petit four to be nibbled with tea. It was a discus of sugar and carbohydrates that felt like it could shatter a window if you threw it hard enough. Holding an original wagon wheel in a small child's hand felt like holding a steering wheel. It was an event. It was a challenge. It was the only biscuit in existence that required you to unhinge your jaw like a python just to get a purchase on the rim. But look at us now. We walk down the biscuit aisle, past the triple Belgian chocolate cookies and the gluten-free oat bars, and we see them. The wagon wheels. They look tired. They look small. They look like they've shrunk in the wash. And for years, we have asked the question, have they betrayed us? Did the world get bigger, or did the wagon wheel get smaller? Today, we are going to peel back the foil wrapper of history. We will look at the financials, the factory closures, and the sticky, marshmallow-filled rise of a snack that defined a generation. Before we embark on this sugary odyssey, do give the subscribe button a firm British handshake and like the video. It helps the algorithm more than a cup of sweet tea helps a hangover. Chapter 1. The Grey World and the Wild West. To understand the wagon wheel, you cannot start in the supermarket. You have to start in the grey, rainy reality of post-war Britain. The year is 1948. The war is over, but the party hasn't exactly started. Rationing is still in full swing. Butter, sugar, and meat are luxury items. The national mood is a mix of relief and exhaustion. Enter Gary Weston. Gary was the son of Garfield Weston, the man behind Burton's Biscuits. Now, the Weston family were not just bakers, they were visionaries. Gary had spent time in North America, and he noticed something that the British public was starving for. Not just sugar, but excitement. In the late 40s, Britain was undergoing a strange cultural obsession. We were obsessed with the American Wild West. We didn't have prairies, we had pavement. We didn't have Mustangs, we had buses. But every Saturday morning, at the pictures, British kids were watching John Wayne tame the frontier. We wanted to be cowboys. Gary Weston saw this. He debuted his creation at the 1948 Olympia Food Fair. He called it the Wagon Wheel. Just think about that branding. It wasn't called the Choco Disc. It was named after a piece of transport infrastructure from a John Ford movie. It promised adventure, and critically, it was huge. In a time of rationing, when you could buy a snack for a few pennies, perhaps a sixpence if you were flush, Weston delivered a slab that screamed excess. Chapter 2. The Anatomy of a Titan. Let's take a moment to chemically and physically deconstruct what made the classic wagon wheel such a masterpiece of engineering. First, the biscuits. 2 of them. Let's not look at this with rose-tinted glasses. They were not buttery shortbread. They were structural supports. They were pale, slightly dry, semi-sweet matrices designed to hold the load. They had a specific snap that sounded like stepping on a dry twig. Sandwiched between them was the marshmallow. But marshmallow is too soft a word. This was industrial-grade mallow. It was chewy. It was dense. When you bit into a 1970s wagon wheel, the mallow fought back. It had a gelatinous stretch that could span the width of a playground. And finally, the coating. In the early days, this was chocolate-flavored coating. Real chocolate was expensive. The coating on a wagon wheel was thin, almost a veneer. It didn't melt in your mouth so much as it dissolved on your fingers instantly. But when you combined these 3 elements, the dry snap, the rubbery chew, and the fleeting sweetness, it was a texture bomb. It required chewing. You couldn't inhale a wagon wheel. You had to work for it. Chapter 3. The Golden Age and the Pocket Money Economy. Fast forward to the 1980s. The wagon wheel is the king of the playground. This was the golden age. Economically, it was the perfect storm. In the 80s, a wagon wheel was the ultimate value proposition. You could pick one up for roughly 10 to 15 pence. For a child with a 50p pocket money allowance, this was a steal. You could buy a wagon wheel, a copy of the Beano, and still have change for a mix-up. It was during this era that Burton's Biscuits decided that perfection wasn't enough. They introduced the jammy wagon wheel. This was a controversial move. Purists argued that the jam compromised the structural integrity of the mallow. They said it made the biscuit too soggy, but for the rest of us, it was a revelation. That thin layer of synthetic raspberry jam provided the acidity that the original was missing. It cut through the sugar. The marketing was relentless. Men with terrible American accents and plastic hats telling us that this was a snack for men, for pioneers. It fit the aesthetic of 1980s Britain perfectly. Everything was brown and orange. The food was heavy, and the wagon wheel was the ultimate comfort food. But as the 90s rolled in, the horizon began to darken. The cowboy craze faded. Kids traded cowboys for space rangers. And quietly, in the boardrooms, the numbers were starting to look worrying. Chapter 4. The Fall. Debt, Closure, and the 342. This is where the story turns from a culinary history into a corporate tragedy. By the 2000s, Burton's Biscuits was in trouble. The company was laden with debt. In 2009, the situation was dire. The company reported a pre-tax loss of nearly £51 million. They were bleeding money. The cost of ingredients like cocoa and sugar was skyrocketing, and the pile-it-high, sell-it-cheap model of the wagon wheel was becoming sustainable. Ownership changed hands. Private equity firms, Apollo Global Management and CIBC, took control. And when private equity walks in, usually, the inefficiencies walk out. The darkest day came in 2011. Burton's announced the closure of their factory in Moreton, on the Wirral. This was the spiritual home where wagon wheels and jammy Dodgers were made. Despite protests and unions fighting to save the plant, the doors were shut. 342 people lost their jobs. It was a massive blow to the community, but it was also a blow to the biscuit itself. Production was moved to Llantarnam in South Wales. New machinery was installed, more efficient machinery. And this leads us to the Great Shrinkage. Chapter 5. The Shrinkflation Conspiracy. If you go to a pub in the UK and mention wagon wheels, someone will slam their hand on the table and say, "They used to be bigger." Here is the cold, hard truth. The original wagon wheel had a diameter of roughly 79 millimeters. Today, the standard wagon wheel clocks in at around 74 millimeters. Now you might say, 5 millimeters? That's nothing. But in the world of biscuits, that is a significant reduction in surface area. But it wasn't just the diameter, it was the thickness. The modern wagon wheel feels flatter. The mallow layer, once a towering pillow, seems compressed. The new, efficient machinery at the Wales factory created a uniform, streamlined puck. It was cleaner, yes, but it lacked the jagged, messy soul of the original. Why did they do it? Money. It is the classic shrinkflation tactic. Rather than raising the price to 50p or 60p and scaring off customers, they kept the price point low by shaving off grams. Chapter 6. The Present. A financial recovery, a spiritual loss. So, where are we today? Financially, the ship has steadied. Burton's is now part of the Fox's Burton's Companies, FBC UK, owned by a Ferrero-related company, yes, the Rocher people. The numbers look better. In 2024, the group reported revenues of over £638 million. They've cut their losses significantly, down to just over £6 million pre-tax, with a healthy operating profit. The business is safe, +1. But what about the biscuit? You can walk into Tesco today and buy a 6-pack of wagon wheels for about £1.50. That's 25p a biscuit. If you catch them on a club card deal, you might get them for £1. Technically, they are still a bargain, but the prestige is gone. The wagon wheel has moved from the eye-level shelf, the premium real estate, to the bottom shelf. It sits there next to the pink wafers and the generic digestives. It is no longer a treat, it is a lunchbox filler. The ingredients have changed too. We've moved away from hydrogenated fats, which is good for our hearts admittedly, but the removal of those bad fats changed the mouthfeel. The chocolate coating is now sweeter, less waxy, but perhaps less memorable. So, the wagon wheel survives. It survived the end of the Wild West craze. It survived the debt crisis of 2009. It survived the factory closure of 2011. It is a survivor, but it is a survivor that bears the scars of battle. It is smaller, it is flatter, it is wrapped in plastic instead of foil. When you eat one today, it's a bittersweet experience. You get the snap, you get the chew, but you also get the ghost of what it used to be. You remember a time when a biscuit could be a meal. You remember a time when 10 pence could buy you a wheel the size of a dinner plate. But let's not end on a downer. The fact that they are still here, rolling off the line in Wales, generating millions in revenue, proves that we still love them. We love the nostalgia. We love the chew. So next time you're in the shop, go to the bottom shelf, spend that £1.50, buy a pack, eat one in memory of the giant it used to be. Just maybe don't get a ruler out. It's better not to know. Thanks for watching. I'm off to find a cup of tea and a biscuit that actually fits in it. Cheers.